As the day has progressed, we've learned more information about the deadly crash above D.C., but we're left with more questions than answers as we try to piece together exactly what went wrong and why. We want to bring in military veteran, pilot, and consumer attorney Timothy Loranger to try to help answer some of those questions and also give perspective on why things could have gone wrong. Thanks so much for your time tonight, Tim. Let's just start with the issue with air traffic control and the fact that one person was doing a two-person job, and we just heard from the reporter on the scene that this has been an ongoing issue. This seems like you can finger point right away to that being the cause. Your reaction?
Well, it's certainly an important consideration, making sure that our air traffic control towers and control centers are fully staffed and able to handle an airport like DCA, which, as you mentioned, is a very densely populated airport. There's a lot of traffic. There's a lot going on. The FAA says that one controller handling both the aircraft and helicopters is within the regulations, but certainly they say this was abnormal, which means that it wasn't optimal. So certainly what we want is our air traffic controllers working in the best, the most optimal conditions as they possibly can. And it's certainly something to look at. But there are many other factors to look at aside from the ATC or the air traffic control question.
Okay, why don't you elaborate on those other factors?
Well, if we look at the Black Hawk helicopter, we've heard some information about whether or not they were flying at the appropriate altitude. And I'm mentioning these things not to cast blame, because we certainly can't come to any conclusions, but questions to be asked are, was the aircraft flying at or below 200 feet, which is the published limit of altitude for an aircraft flying in that area. And this was a training mission. I believe that almost every flight that the military takes is a training mission, because they use these flights to make sure that pilots and their crew have the experience that they need in times of necessity. Also, was a mention of night vision goggles. It seems impossible almost to me that they were flying with night vision goggles in this environment, because there was a lot of lights. They would have washed out what the pilots could see. But those are things that we will learn as the investigation unfolds. Otherwise, there might be some other air traffic control questions aside from the manning of the tower, like what were the instructions given to the pilot? Was there a change from landing on runway run to runway 33, things like that? But this is a very complicated situation. There's a lot to look into. It's very early to come to conclusions. And at the end of the day, what's important is that we learn what happened and then we do everything we can to avoid it from happening again.
As already mentioned, but I want to get your take on it, the fact that this is such a congested airspace anyway. I was hearing today that this is one of the most disliked airport to fly into from pilots. I'm not sure if you've flown in there, your thoughts on that, but what needs to change moving forward, given the congestion in the airspace? And this is an airport that reportedly is known for a lot of near misses. I
have friends and colleagues who are pilots who have flown many times into the airport, and they have shared their concerns about it. It's an approach that is unique from other airports. They are required to fly relatively low on the approach, which, the lower you are, the less opportunity you have to fix things that go wrong, and it can be a stressful situation. That's what I've heard from colleagues. And then how can we fix this? Well, it's very important that the FAA do an analysis of the airport and make sure that the airport is not beyond its capacity. And if there are steps that the FAA can take to make the airport safer, to add additional air traffic controllers, or to maybe even decide that it shouldn't handle as much traffic, those decisions have to be made, because this is an important airport, as is every airport. Mm-hmm. People's lives depend on its safety, and those are decisions that will be made, I think, once the investigation is finished. All
right, let me ask you a final question here. In regards to President Trump linking the federal DEI programs to the cause of this crash, linking it to the crash, period. In your experience, have you encountered any air traffic controller who was not qualified?
I have not had that experience, and I don't believe now is the time to be discussing DEI. We don't know who the controller was. We don't know what their experience was, what their qualifications were, who they were. And so it's just it's much too early to come to any kind of conclusion like that. The air traffic controllers are highly trained. They are tested to make sure that they have the skills and that they have the qualities that are necessary to handle a very high stress job like this. And so every one of those people who has that responsibility has been vetted, and I believe that they are appropriately in their positions. And so we will find out whether or not there was a training issue or something else as more information becomes available. And I think we should withhold our judgment.
Okay, very good. I want to make sure I get all your titles right when I thank you here. Consumer attorney, military veteran, thank you for your service, and pilot Timothy Loranger, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.